let's just get into it then. So for me, when I came across Sticker, I did not expect to like the song and the music video as much as I did. And I'm still trying to figure it out because I think it was an NCT song that I took to right away while knowing how odd it was in terms of the song and even the music video. So at this point, I suspect that the underlying reason for this, of why I like it, is I think the years of hard work that 127 has put in is finally paying off, right? Like in the form of teamwork, better stage presence, on-point choreography and dancing, more vocals. So I think all of that came together and that allowed them to do a more subtle concept. So those are kind of my first impressions. How about you?
Honestly, quite similar. Like this was the first NCT 127 song that I think I had a very positive first reaction to for all the reasons you mentioned. And especially, I think I appreciated the unity of the whole MV and song, despite the fact that the song was quite weird. But one of the big things for me in terms of the development and looking at the development of 127 and having that come to fruition here was in the line distribution. In general, I think we've been waiting for this for a while. It has been historically very Mark and Taeyong heavy, and it's going in a really favorable direction. And I think that makes them sound much more balanced as a group, which is desirable for me as a listener because ultimately, like, this is a group act.
I think we saw the signs of this coming, the signs of better line distribution coming when we saw that on the Neozone B-sides, as well as Gimme Gimme, which is what they started off 2021 with.
Yes.
So I think it was not only like the line distribution, but also the center distribution, because everybody kind of got their own time to shine in the performances. And for me personally, like, I'm a big Taeyong stan, Taeyong bias. And just the fact that I can see
Say it louder for the people in the back.
Just the fact that he has a center part during the chorus, which if you think about it, should not be a big deal because he's the main vocalist. It was just so meaningful to me. And he got camera time as well. Because honestly, there have been moments where, let's say, like, Taylor's singing, and in the music video or in the performances, like, the camera just cuts to someone else. And that hurts, honestly. So I don't think that happened as much in this song, which I'm very grateful for as a fan. And I do think that translates well, musically speaking. I think the actual composition of the song itself lends itself to a more balanced performance because, sure, there are the rap verses, right? So we can still hear Mark and Taeyong very clearly, but there are also kind of rap and vocal pre-choruses. It's also a very vocal-heavy chorus. It's also a pretty vocal-heavy bridge. So, like, not only do the vocalists get to sing significant amounts of the song, but so do the sub-vocalists. And I don't think that was necessarily the case consistently, at least in previous 127 title tracks.
100%. I think that has actually been one of the most off-putting things about 127 for me until this point. Like, I'm not sure who some of the members are. I don't know, like, what their vocal, like, range is like. I don't know what their dance range is like. And a lot of that has been because they have not been featured in the same way. So I'm really happy to finally be exploring more into some of those areas. And I'm happy that the creative teams behind them are also thinking that it's time. And I think that Sticker was a very successful execution of that. Okay, so do you want to go into song sound? Okay, so it's kind of funky. We'll just put it out there. Even on the re-listen, it's just a weird song. And I'm actually somewhat okay with this because I have an appreciation for the kind of alt rock, alternative sounding song. So it wasn't too weird, but historically for 127, it's very weird. I like how the instrumentation and the sounds in the back and the beat don't take over the vocal tracks, and it helps us hear the members more, as you said before. And in general, I find some of the 127 songs can be quite intense, especially their title tracks. So I was actually looking quite favorably upon this as more of like a laid back kind of alternative beat. Yeah.
Do you think it's weirder than their other songs?
It is weirder sonically. It's just kind of a funkier beat. It's a weirder scale and key.
In terms of tying it back to previous 127 songs, I think I summed it up by thinking that previous 127 songs had a depth in production that was provided by the layered instrumentals. I mean, Simon Says, fire truck, like very intense tracks, right? Instrumentally speaking. And here I think they were still able to achieve that depth, but instead by relying more on the actual vocal qualities of the members and just focusing on like a few very key instrumental themes, like whether it's the pipe whether it's the pipe sound, whether it's the piano. So that was really great. And I think in that sense, whereas the previous songs got better with each listen because there was so much depth to it in terms of all the layers, here I feel like each time I listen to the sticker again, I'm like, oh, like I've learned something more about Do-young's voice.
Yeah, in some ways I'm actually thinking like historically it's been the case where the track, like the instrumentation has almost kind of carried the members.
Yeah.
But I think we're kind of transitioning into a point where like the members are carrying the track, like the rest of the song. So that's super exciting for sure.
Do you want to talk about the choreo?
Yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised with also how laid back the choreo was. Like, I kind of forget sometimes it's an ensemble of 9 because sometimes the choreography can be extremely intense and it kind of just looks like a bunch of stormtroopers. It's kind of like a mass crowd effect. But I found this choreo was a lot more nuanced. It kind of fit this more stripped down song. And certainly it didn't overwhelm the music, but really complemented it.
Yeah. You know, there's detail to the choreography, and that's really cool. And I imagine that the song itself was probably challenging to choreograph. Like I'm thinking about the second verse and Mark's rap part. That part of choreo is so interesting, and I don't know how many other groups in K-pop could have pulled it off. So I'm super happy about that. I think one other thing is that the choreo has this moment for the sticker a bit, where they all kind of take turns having that center part. And once again, I think that was one of the reasons that we got to see Johnny a bit more in the center, or we got to see Jungwoo in the last chorus in the center. So overall, the choreo and the song in tandem with one another allowed for better center distribution. So no complaints there.
Yeah, and I found that the MV really built off this. Like, I'm not even sure if they devised this from the beginning, that the kind of Galaxy Space Cowboy Vegas kind of approach was devised while they did the choreo, but there are a few nods to it, you know, of them taking like shots in the choreo, like Taeyong at 108. But the fact that like it all flossed together, especially when the MV came out in terms of the visual language on screen, I just found it very cohesive. And I needed that for 127. I needed it.
Same.
Yeah.
You know, the Galactic Cowboy concept was so helpful. It didn't feel tacky, and it didn't feel too proppy either.
Yeah.
Which I think could have happened really easily. But I'm happy it didn't turn out that way.
It's very interesting because you could argue that almost everything in this entire MV is kind of tacky, right? But it doesn't render that way, which I think is an amazing accomplishment.
And just as how the line distribution and the center part distribution was really good, I think the screen time was also great, with different members just getting fun and playful moments, like, you know, Tail the dog with the chihuahua, with the slow-mo, Jung with the heart. I think before I didn't really appreciate these moments, but now I'm realizing like these music videos stay with us for a really long time. Right. And they're really important. So I think it's great that a wider variety of members can have more fun moments like those.
I also love to see how much fun the videographers had with the camera work and some of the fun shots. Like I'm thinking of when Haechan's kind of having his up close and knocking down the camera in janky ways, or it switches perspective to some of the mannequins. Very diverse and very fun. And also helped complement all of the other parts of the video. So when Taeyo's slow-mo comes out, it's very dramatic. It was very well balanced, also like from a cinematic perspective. And the end shot, okay. So there are 2 epic end shots that I distinctly remember, and this is one of them. The other is Make-A-Wish. It was a similar kind of just having so much fun on the end moment. And this was super effective. I actually immediately found it more effective than Make-A-Wish. Make-A-Wish was cool, but Mark's little gunsling,
it was epic.
It was epic. It was epic.
Yeah, and it was like, of course Mark would do it, you know?
Yeah.
Not in the sense that Mark does everything, but in the sense that he was so good at it, and it was perfect.